30 again.
Hello, everybody. Just checking that you guys can hear us. Okay, I'm joined by Mars today. We are going. Hang on, are you in there? There you are, Mars. Welcome. Now, for those of you that don't know Mars, really, but just in case, Mars, who are you?
So I'm Mars Lord. I'm lead voice for Black Maternal Health. I'm a birth activist and a life coach. That's the easiest way to describe me.
Way, yeah. Now, we're going to be talking today about holding space and being present and why that's important in birth work, but also in any kind of work where you're holding an intimate space for somebody and space for them to grow, space for them to dig deep and find aspects of their being that they need to confront. So, yes, while we're going to be talking about birth work, actually it does go beyond birth work. If you are somebody that does hold the space for people, maybe you hold group support spaces, maybe you're a therapist or a coach. All of these situations require you to be present and to hold the space for somebody. And so this conversation, while it might be centered around pregnancy and birth, will be relevant for those people that do all that kind of work. So before we dive into the conversation, I think maybe a great place to start, Mars, might be, what does it mean really to hold space and to be present? What's your take on that?
My take on that. So a lot of people think it means to be busy doing lots of things and looking like they're juggling lots of things. But actually, one of the things that when I train doulas, I tell them is the importance of being. And it doesn't matter whether it's in the birth setting or the postpartum setting or whatever complementary therapies you're bringing. Holding space is simply putting yourself outside the door and staying still and just listening and watching and hearing your client. So as they're giving you stuff, instead of constantly that I must think of answers for them, it's just take a moment and just hold it. When you hold something, you don't have to do anything with it. You quite simply just hold it. And that's what holding space is. But I think we find that hard to do, you know.
It is very hard for a lot of people to do because some people find they want to leap in and start helping and giving advice.
Yeah.
So when somebody might be struggling with something, they immediately think, oh, they're here. What they want me to solve this for them. They want me to. So there might be a compulsion there to sort of help and help them deal with whatever they're facing. So there could be this need to fix or to give advice, which is actually not what they're after. Maybe they just want the presence of somebody to just cry and to let whatever's coming out. So that doesn't mean they need a hug. I mean, a hug might not be what they need. Or they might not need you to share a situation that you've had. Well, I had this just last week and it was just a nightmare. No, they don't necessarily want that either. It is this nothingness, isn't it? This holding of just not doing anything.
Yeah. I mean, I'll give you an example of it, which some people say, well, that's not a very nice example. But I had someone who wanted to make a complaint about a doula, but didn't know where to take it. And actually, all they wanted was to be heard. So I sat on the phone with them for half an hour and let them lay out all of the things that they were thinking. And I could have been saying, oh, well, no, they will have done this because of, oh, that would have happened because, and I just sat and for half an hour, and, you know, obviously I wasn't silent the whole half an hour because I would prompt them and say, okay, so to be clear, what you're saying is this. And then they just told me. And at the end, I did say to them at the beginning as well, there's nothing that I can personally do to help you. They said, no, thank you. We just wanted to be able to tell somebody. So I held space for something that A, had nothing to do with me, and B, was very just affirming for them. They were able to say, this is all the crap.
Yeah.
And I just said, okay.
So it's being heard.
Yeah. And just not inserting myself into their process and their things, but just sitting with them, letting them say, letting them be, affirming what they've said, whether I agree with it or not, affirming what they've said, so that they came to this place of peaceful resolution and they said, okay, now we can close that chapter.
So some processing going on there, because I think when some people have some difficult situations, and maybe, this could be a difficult birth, but it could be any kind of tricky situation, maybe an argument you just had with your other half or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just want to kind of talk it through, and it's that process of taking all that stuff that's going on in your head and then articulating it, putting it into words, and just verbalizing something that hadn't had words before, and that process of giving it words. And then as you say it, you're like, oh, and it starts to take on another new layer of meaning. You start to kind of identify it or understand it from a new perspective the minute that you've added words to it. Yeah. And so that very process of allowing somebody the space to feel like they are speaking to somebody, that person, that they are being listened to, and that what they're saying is important, so that they can just get it out. And it's having the space to be able to do that and not be interrupted, not be judged, not having somebody answering rhetorical questions, not just literally holding that space.
Yeah. And it's hard. I mean, if you look in the world, everyone values productivity. Everyone values you doing. And so that's why it can be hard to just be still, because there's a part of you thinking, I ought to be doing something. They need to see that I'm doing something. They need to understand why they're paying me money. The healthcare professionals, the people around me need to see that I'm doing something. I mean, I tell this all the time. My mum used to ask me what it was that I did as a doula, and I said, well, I do nothing. I mean, those of us that are birth workers know that there are shades of nothing, right?
Yeah.
And she said, Lord God, people pay you to do nothing. Because she couldn't make it work in her mind. And my mum's not the only one that can't make it work in her mind, because I train doulas and they can't make it work in their minds until it's just broken down again and again and again and again and again for them. And then they say, oh, because it's like decision making. People say, I can't decide. Well, the act of not deciding is a decision you've taken.
Yeah.
So whatever you're doing, you are making a decision. So holding space, deciding to do something, is you making a decision that you can't hold that space. So you're going to just entertain your brain, your mind, yourself, or other people, constantly trying to do this thing that society says that you need to be doing, when actually the holding space is a beautiful active inaction, if that makes sense.
Well, it's active listening. And I think a lot of people struggle with just with how to listen.
Yes.
Because their mind is too busy for them to kind of just listen to what you're saying. They're constantly trying to kind of find something within their own experience to kind of contribute and to turn this into a conversation, rather than this allowing somebody to speak. And then when a pause happens, when the person is maybe thinking about what they're going to say next, and there's a pause, at that point is to allow that pause to just be and not leap in. I'm teaching my daughter this a lot, my 8-year-old who's just turned 9, who's, like when we're having a conversation, there is a pause. She's like, leaps in, thinking, all right, I can start the next conversation now. Oh, so now we're going to talk about da-da-da-da-da. And I was like, no, this is a pause in a conversation that you need to let be, because that person's thinking. And if they're not, well, we can just enjoy the pause. Like, it's about being comfortable with the pause and the silence. And many people are not comfortable with the silence because they want to fill the silence. And so it's this combination of being able to listen without judgment, listen without wanting to fix or heal or give advice, listen without wanting to bring in your own experience to go, oh yeah, I had that too, and listen and allow the pauses to take shape. I
think it's our judgments of ourselves that makes us move so quickly, as well as the habit, because it is habit. I mean, when you and I talk, we sometimes tumble over each other because we just love talking to each other. And it's like, oh my God, I've got this woman in front of me for a short space of time. Let's get all the words out. But there is a real beauty in the silence and in the waiting, because sometimes, most times, when we wait, things come up that we weren't expecting. And when we look at ourselves and say, oh, hold on, why do I need to fill this gap? Oh, it's because I'm scared that they're going to think I've got nothing to say. Oh, I'm scared because they're going to think I'm boring. Oh, I'm scared it's because I think they don't know they don't think I know what I'm doing. And then when we catch that, we can say, oh, of course that feels true. And this is why. So, okay, let me just wait. Here you go, birth workers. It's that pause and give thanks moment where the healthcare professionals are like, oh, you've stopped pushing. We really need to get you pushing, when you know that the body is going, okay, let me just take a minute and start to send the signal to do the final push. So imagine if your holding space for your client was that pause and give thanks stage. What would you do then?
I think this all that stuff that you're talking about, which I call head trash, which is that, oh, what they're going to say, they're going to think I'm not doing anything. They're going to, I need to go in and help them because I need to be helped. That they need, that this is this busyness in the head. That if you allow that to if you haven't dealt with that, it's going to make it much harder for you to be able to hold that space, because you're battling the inside of your head. And so the inside of your head isn't quiet. How can you create that quietness, that space for somebody else to be able to breathe? Because it's so chaotic, or there's a need, you have a compulsion, or your own judgments, and your desire to look like you know what you're doing, your desire to be taken seriously, your desire to, whatever those things are overriding the need of the person in front of you and what they need. That you're actually being driven by your own emotional needs, not by the needs of the person that's sitting in front of you. And so how can you truly hold space for somebody when you can't even hold space for yourself?
And it's difficult, isn't it? Because how easy is it to just sit in silence? Not because you're meditating, not because you're reading, not because you're watching something, but to just capture yourself in silence. It's not that easy.
I used to hate this. I had before I did I was a right hot mess when I was much younger. And
not just you, Alexia, not just you.
Now I'm hot for all different other reasons. And I could not, even a short bus trip into town, which might be like a 10-minute bus trip, or walking around town city centres when I need to do my shopping on a Saturday, I couldn't do that without having earbuds in. I couldn't do that. I couldn't just be on the bus. I couldn't just be on the whole idea of taking a train ride for an hour and not having, earbuds with me to be able to kind of get rid of the silence. The being on my own, I couldn't handle that. I just couldn't do it. And that's a sign that you have a lot of head trash that needs to be resolved, traumas that are unresolved. There's a lot of work, a lot of healing that needs to happen there to enable you to kind of confront what's going on in your head. So that you can be in that place of holding space and being present. Because we've not touched on the being present bit, but a lot of the time when we have got that head trash going on, we are jumping to other points in time, whether it's in the past, like, oh, I should have said that. You start regretting whatever didn't happen last week, yesterday, an hour ago, the conversation you just had, or you're panicking about what's happening in an hour, next week. You're not right here. Your mind is elsewhere. And if you can't be present, then you're also going to have a huge problem with holding space, because holding space is being present with that person and not with your mind distracted on something else. Like sometimes when I'm having a conversation with somebody and then you can just see that their eyes is glazed and they just pick up their phone just to check for notifications and you're like, what are you doing? Like, Well, you literally can't even listen to me until the end of my sentence. Like,
Yes.
am I really that boring? Or is it just that your mental capacity cannot stay with what we're doing? You haven't got that staying power on this one track because there's so much flitty going on that you're now looking elsewhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It makes total sense. And it's funny because it's the catch-22. You can't hold space without being present. You can't be present without holding space. Whether you're holding space for yourself or for someone else. You know, and that is a skill that is learned in this busy time where everything is coming at us, you know, 15-second sound bites, you know, what is it? You've got 3 seconds to capture your audience on Instagram. You've got 2 seconds to capture them on TikTok or whatever else it is that you're doing. And we've been talking for years about living in an instant society, and we didn't have a clue what we meant because things are so much more instant than they were when we were saying, it's like, you know, people want to live instantly like a cup of instant coffee. Well, a cup of instant coffee takes far too long for people now because it's just filling the kettle. The 15 seconds is done. It's over. It's up. They've moved on, you know. And so, this is something that we can learn and start to be mindful of. And something to practice is holding space for yourself. When I talk to my clients, when I'm coaching clients, we talk about that. Hold on. Shh. Let's come back to this bit. They say, I want to talk about this. And then they go all the way over here. And I'm like, come back. Okay. Let's just wait here. Let's just hear what you said in this moment. And it is tricky for people to do.
Well, you say it's a skill to learn. I kind of disagree with that because I feel like that requires effort. And it does require effort, but it's not adding something, it's taking away. Yeah. Like the reason that you can't hold space is there is too much in there. So you don't want to add a skill, that's adding something else in. And that requires this idea that I'm trying to do something, that I'm learning a new habit, that I've got to bed it in, there's effort in there, which is way too much effort for a lot of people. And I find the reason that you can't hold space is because of all the stuff that's in there. Yeah. So the way that you do that is you empty the bloody space. That's how you do that. You just empty what's going on in there so that naturally you have space. The idea of like, I'm going to make space in my room and I'm going to do that by buying a new double bed sofa just sounds insane because it's like, well, there's not going to be enough room in there. Well, I'll have extra room on the bed. No, but it's still going to feel really cluttered. Yeah. What you need to empty the room and then you have space. Does that make sense?
It does make sense because I was thinking the skill of putting things out and away. I mean, I told someone the other day, you know, I'm not like a literal huge hoarder, but I like to collect things. So I'm a hoarder with a minimalist being throttled by the hoarder inside. And so when I think about it, I'm thinking about the skill of just putting this stuff down, like, you know, becoming a minimalist about things. But I do like what you said, and that's got my brain going, ooh, yes. Because you're right, we don't actually need something else to do. We watch people all the time in this work picking up new skills and their bags are so full that they just end up pouring it over their clients rather than just being still with their clients.
And the reason that somebody can't hold space, my dog has now just joined us, is because
when I'm on.
is because of the things that we're trying to do, because the judgments that we have about ourselves or them, because of our compulsion or our need to help others. And if I don't help them, they're going to say, I'll need to be taken seriously. These are all internal conflicts or fears or emotional needs that need satisfying or that are at play. So the way that we deal with what's getting in the way of between me and me being able to hold space, well, it's my fear of judgment, it's my need to help, it's my these are all these things. Actually, you heal all that. That's no longer getting in the way of you being able to hold space. So it is this, what I call, it's clearing your head trash. It's clearing it out. It's a cleaning job. It's not a doing job. It's a, you're releasing, and it's the release that enables space. That you then have the space. It's there.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot.
And that's been my experience. It's been when I've done massive clear outs, emotional clear outs, big healing jobs, whatever you want to call that. That has been where I've seen a massive step change in my ability to be present and my ability to hold space. And when I've seen that in my clients as well. And I think I did this big therapeutic healing retreat a long time ago called the Hoffman process, which is really hardcore. It's like 8 days. You have to give over your phone the whole time you're there, which this is like, I did this over 10 years ago. So I think people would have a total meltdown now with that kind of experience. So we had a silent section of that week, which totally really melted my brain at the time. But the result of that 8 days of intense therapeutic intervention, let's call it that way, I went to go and visit my godfather, who's got sprawling land in Surrey, and with a wood, and I could go and walk in the wood, and it's a ridiculously large plot. And so I said, I'm going to go out for a walk this morning, and I'll see you back at lunchtime. And he's like, yeah, I'm going to go play tennis, yeah. So he did that, and I went to sit down with my rug, and I woke up. No, I didn't wake up. Then I thought, I better check, so I'm going to need to go back for lunch. I'd been there 4 hours staring at the trees, and I was like, how did I... That was me being completely present, where I did not notice time passing. Yeah. I was just in the moment, feeling the grass on my hands, whatever it was. And that was a real moment for me. I was like, wow, that's being present. You don't notice the passing of time. You're able to just be. You're not watching a cacophony of thoughts and fears tumbling through your head. You're literally just feeling the wind on your cheeks. And you're in a moment that's timeless. And I don't get to recreate that very often because life is kind of a little bit, it's hard to kind of escape to the point where you can do that. But that was really a taste for me of like, well, okay, that's what being present really is. And that for me came after a very intense period of clear out and cleaning, emotional cleaning.
Well, I suppose itchy eye today. I suppose the joy of what you teach with clearing head trash is that you don't need 8 hours without your phone or 8 days, away.
This is the book, by the way, that she's referring to.
Clear your head trash, lovely. Yes. But I like what you do because it can happen so instantly, and it's you can tell me on that. It is a skill people can learn so that they don't have to keep adding things to their brain so that they can, take things away. And I do like the way that works, the being present with oneself. It's very difficult. I think what I've discovered in moving away from the big city is just how present with myself I'm learning to be. Because as soon as I say this, I just know a motorbike or something is going to screech across the front of my window. But it is so quiet here. I'm not distracted by traffic sounds and noises and things. And I do find myself sitting and just saying, oh, that time passed because I've just been where I am, And that was quite a deliberate thing for me, having moved from a noisy city to recapture silence.
But the point that you're making about the noise and, we've all been to those meditation classes where they go, oh, just ignore that fly that's just landed on your nose. It doesn't matter that there's like drilling going on outside. You just got to sit quietly and, and you're like, I can't do this because it's so noisy. And I remember I was in those meditation sessions. I was like, I need peace and quiet. If it's not peace and quiet, I can't do this.
Yeah.
And actually, we're just responding to these noises and these distractions. And this is about mental fitness. Again, this is about your ability to stay on task mentally with what you're doing, whether it's being present, whether it's concentrating, whether it's, if you sat down to write that post that you're going to put out on Facebook, if you finish writing it or if you now got distracted by something else, that kind of stayability, and whether that's staying present, whether that's being able to go to sleep, because there is a noise going on, but maybe you're not hooking yourself onto it.
Yeah.
And so how able are you to kind of stay focused on something or remain present without these distractions coming in? And they might be knocking on your mental door, but are you just like, yeah, I'm not really picking up on that? Like, yeah, you can make as much noise as you like, and I'm still in my zone. Or does all this distraction, does it distract you? And this is a good test to see whether or not you're able to hold space and be present. Because if you're easily distracted by these external factors, then you've probably got a little bit more work to do in terms of being able to be present. Because you hear those yogis and these enlightened beings, whatever, they say you should be able to just, meditate and be in that place when there's all that stuff going on, all that chaos going on, because it doesn't matter what's going on out there. It's all about what's going on here. And so that can be a useful test for people to see how easily they are distracted by things. Yeah. And what is it that, this is what I call that mental fitness, that kind of ability to stay, for your mind to stay on task with what you've asked it to do.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
It does make sense. It does make sense. Because I see it so often in people, and obviously myself, where it's like, oh, hold on a minute, just stay here. I can feel myself going off over there, and it's like, no, just stay here. Just stay here. I worked yesterday, I decided to have a magnesium bath.
Ooh.
I hate baths though. I've always hated baths. I prefer the shower. But you can't get the magnesium in the shower. So I was having a magnesium bath. And I was like, well, how do I keep myself present in the bath? Because I'm, normally I'm like, because it's been 5 minutes yet, can I go? So I just put on a meditation, just these bells in the background. And then I started to just switch those out and off. They were there, but I switched them out and off. And I was really impressed with myself because I stayed in the bath for 30 minutes. And I hate baths. 30 minutes is like the longest I've been in a bath for ages. But it's like, no, how do I just make myself present here, allowing my breathing to just be and just soaking in the goodness of this water? Yeah. And it's, very interesting what happens when you do that, because I got out and thought, I was like, oh my goodness, that half an hour actually went quite quickly.
Well, exactly. It does when you are in that zone. It does. Time doesn't have there is no time, and it feels like it's going.
5 minutes were like an hour.
So what do you think is like you mentioned skills that people can learn, and also I've got the opposing view to that. But what some of the skills what can people do, like when they're trying? From an effort, like if people want to start with I'm going to make an effort now to hold space more. I'm going to make an effort to be present more. What were some of the things that you would recommend?
Well, first you make that decision and say, okay, I'm going to be present. I'm going to hold space. But simultaneously, the next decision you make is, and I'm going to give myself compassion because I might fuck this up. I don't want to, but I might. And I'm going to give myself compassion because, oh, look, I'm human. And this is what we humans do. We make mistakes from time to time. And then just breathe. And when you find, a suggestion, because different things work for different people, when you find yourself rushing away, just take a breath. Something that I teach people to do now is that's exactly right, Dog. And what I teach them to do now is be conscious of their palms and just run their fingers down their palms, or rub a thumb against a finger and feel the ridges of the fingerprints to just center them back. Because if you're being conscious there, it's almost like those fidget toys. So my daughter would have really benefited from one if school had allowed it, where you're twiddling this thing which allows your brain to go, oh, okay, I'm doing something, and then it just stills itself. And so a very simple thing to do is to just feel your palms or rub your fingers and just remind yourself, oh, yeah, I'm being present. And then go back into the space where you're being present. Go back into the place where you're holding space. And it's something that you can do, particularly if you're attending a birth or you're doing a postpartum job or all of these demands are going on around you. No one needs to know that what you're doing is just gently rubbing your fingers together. But that is such a self-soothing, stilling act. But I think self-compassion is important. Make the decision to be present, to be mindful, to be holding the space, but have compassion for yourself so that you're not thinking, oh my God, I'm going to do this wrong, and then you start beating yourself up.
Yeah.
You just do it, and when you fall out of it, your self-compassion says, it's okay, you can go back.
And then when you're with somebody that is that needs to speak, that needs to be held. And I think when you're with somebody that's like that, is kind of just reminding yourself that they're not, unless they ask you not ask a question, but ask you a question. Yeah. Which is quite different, isn't it? They might just go, well, I don't know, why did he do that? No, they're not asking you that. They're just vocalizing. Yes. But they might then go, well, what would you have told him? Oh, well, that's now a question to you. And then you can now answer that question. Yes. But it's being very clear that you are required to do nothing, but just to be and allow them to verbalize. And it might be that they have to ask you the question twice, so that you're super sure that they want you to say something. Yeah. Because they just need this space to vocalize, to verbalize, to think through, to process whatever is going on.
Yeah, because what you're actually doing is you're giving your time. So you are gifting your time.
And attention, which is huge in current times where, people are screaming for attention because they don't get this quality, somebody who's truly listening to them and not wanting to leap in and make it about them again.
Yeah, because we're not, at least I hope we're not, in the practice of giving a gift and taking it straight back. And if you think of it as gifting your time, your presence, your attention, you're more likely to stay there. If you're taking your time, it's like, no, I'm getting from you. But we work in such a sort of serving industry that if we think about it as just another level of our service, this gifting of time and attention, then it becomes easier because it's not about me. It's my gift to you. So this is your space, your time.
Yeah. And I think that attention is, the attention, I think is really, really important because one thing I'm saying to my daughter quite a lot is, she'll just fire a question, like I'm reading or something, I'm doing something, I don't know. And she'll just say something because we have an open plan living space. And it's not even, it's just a question. I think, hang on, you could have maybe done a bit more common sense, use your own brain, try and answer the question yourself before asking it. Because sometimes kids need to learn that it's not always about outsourcing the thinking. Sometimes they need to maybe try and solve that themselves. And I say you just kind of, or you've just knocked on the door of my attention, grabbed it away from me. Then you've not done anything with it because you've actually just answered your own question by the time you finish saying it. Yeah. But you've just robbed me of my attention in that moment. And that's a very precious thing. Before you go and get somebody's attention, make sure that there's you're going to do something with it, not just squander it.
Yes.
I don't mind giving you my attention if it's going to be used. Yeah. But if you're just going to squander it, then I'd rather you let me keep it onto what I was actually doing with my attention. Yeah. And this idea that attention is a gift and not to be squandered. And if somebody is giving it to you, then that's the gift. That's what you're doing. Yeah. That's what they're paying. That's the gift.
Yes. And that's why I think being is an active inaction. Because you're not just, but you are holding.
Yeah.
Just holding, not stroking, not moving, not passing, just holding. And so, and I think it's something that we can do more and more for one another. And I'm a great believer in bring self-compassion with you, because you're going to screw it up. And if you're beating yourself up, then all of a sudden everything is lost. But if you know that you can fall onto self-compassion and go, it's okay if I do it wrong. you're less likely to do it wrong, because
Yeah.
your self-compassion is your safety net. And actually, by sort of by proxy, it's your clients or that person you're holding space for. It's also their safety net. No, you're not going to be caught up in beating yourself up.
Yeah.
Because you're just there.
Well, brilliant, Mars. I think we might wrap it up there for today on the holding space. If anybody has any comments or questions or want to challenge anything that we've said, then the comments, just dive into the comments, even if you're watching on the replay, and we'll be around to check in on comments. We're going to have some more conversations like this coming up in various locations on Facebook and elsewhere. So do come along and join us for our next conversation, which is happening. Yeah. Is it next week? I think we're doing another one.
I think it is next week.
Yeah, similar time.
Next week.
So do check on wherever you found this video, and we'll be here to cover the next one. What's our next conversation? Can you remember what it was?
Protecting yourself from burnout.
Oh, that's a good one.
Okay. Yes, and that's next Tuesday.
Wonderful.
Because I'm scrolling.
Are you scrolling? You're not present now, Mars.
I'm fully back with you. So yes, next Tuesday.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, so thank you for joining us and or watching the replay, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Next time. Bye.